to another exciting episode of the Working in Tech live stream. Today, we have an amazing guest on the in Tech live stream, Kenneth Ellington, a cybersecurity professional who's helping nurture new talent in the field. Kenneth has a remarkable story. So he went from working in the deli at Publix to becoming a senior cybersecurity consultant at a big four firm within just 3 years. You don't hear stories like that every day. And with expertise in SIEM, SOAR, and endpoint security, he aims to inspire, newbies trying to pivot into cybersecurity with hands-on training on security solutions and real-world threat scenarios. He's a Florida native who's now based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and he's taught, cyber infrastructure part-time at the University of Houston. He volunteers in Black and cybersecurity and trains in boxing and kickboxing. So it's not only defending online, you can also do some offline. And one of the things that shows is like he's approaching all his endeavors with relentless dedication. Today, Kenneth will share his rapid growth in cybersecurity consulting, the proven keys to accelerating in the industry, and advice for excelling as a leader in your role. So this is definitely going to be packed with a lot of actionable tips and unfiltered wisdom. So definitely watch out for a masterclass in cyber security. It's wonderful to have you on the show, Kenneth.
Thank you, John. Appreciate being on.
Great. So one of the first questions I always ask on shows like this is, why did you get into tech? What inspired that journey?
So I'd probably say a big influence was my father. So my dad's been a software engineer for almost 30 years now. So he became one when he left the Navy. So he's the one that kind of pushed me and my brother to go inside of tech. Initially, I didn't want to do it. So it's a funny story. So this is back in middle school. He made me do Code Academy, like HTML course during the summer to see if I'd like it. I'm like, this is the lamest thing ever, Dad. So I was like, Dad, you're telling me people basically pay you to type on a keyboard and make money? I'm like, that's stupid. I don't want to do that. So when I graduated from high school, I went the business route. So my degree with business management initially. It wasn't until my junior year when I got to USF, University of South Florida, go Bulls, that I decided that I want to narrow down my focus to get better job prospects. So I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm like, what should I do? He's like, how about IT, Kenneth? I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. So that's where I kind of narrowed down inside IT. Then I went the cybersecurity route. Long story short, one of the big things to tell my students is make sure everyone knows what your true desires are, so they're able to speak on your behalf when you're not inside of the room. That's what I did. So when I worked at the deli at Publix, I let my manager know that, hey, Lori, I want to do cybersecurity and IT. If you know anybody that can do that for me or help me out with that, please just let me know. 2 weeks later, she's like, hey, Kenneth, you said you want to do cybersecurity. I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, the director of information security for Publix is coming towards our store in 2 weeks. Do you want to meet him? I'm like, yes, of course. So I met with the director of cybersecurity for Publix. He sat me down. He said he loved my passion and energy. He said he wanted me to be on his internship team next year because it was that summer, so I had a spot filled up. He's like, hey, Kenneth, he's like, if you can do all the steps that I list for you right now by next summer, right, by next spring, when we interview you, I can almost guarantee you a spot on our internship team. I said, sure thing, sir. I'll do it. I'll do everything you need me to do. Fast forward 9 months, I interview with the team, I get the job. That's how I got inside cybersecurity, basically.
Wow, that's a wild story. So something that really jumps out at me is, the power of having a vision and being able to sell your story. So you knew exactly what you wanted to do and you were just telling everybody. And that in itself leads to this dream. Like, has that kind of like popped into your mind that that's what you were doing, like manifesting your vision, or that was just like and is that something that you preach, or is that something that you think is powerful?
For me, it was like the minute I found out that cybersecurity was going to give me the life that I wanted to do, nothing was going to get in my way of reaching that goal. And I just made it my passion to make sure that it happens. there's a lot of people that I have to cut outside of my life because they didn't really get it or why I was working so hard. That's just how it happens sometimes. But I don't have any regrets in that regard. It was completely worth it. I basically made cybersecurity my life for 2 to 3 years. I didn't really go out. I didn't really go out to eat. I didn't really party. I never partied, but I didn't do it when I was in college. I didn't really play video games. I was literally just working, school, and studying, trying to network with people, and it led me to here. So I'm quite happy with the results.
So, how did you gain the technical skills to actually, build that career in cybersecurity, and maybe potentially what were those things that you had to check off? I imagine those were like things along the cybersecurity route that set you up for success. Uh,
So one of the things was study for Security Plus. I didn't get it to after the internship, but I studied for it. So I went through material for it. That's CompTIA Security Plus. It's a basic security certification for the field. Another thing was to get my Splunk core user exam and or training and do that, which is what I did. Hence the Splunk shirt. I did that. He said go to 2 conferences. Excuse me. So one was it called? I think Cyber Florida. It's like based out of Tampa. I went to that one. And he said go to B-Sides Tampa, which I went to as well. They're both on my campus actually. Well, B-Sides was. I did that, and he said shadow the team in the fall, which I did, which was so I shadowed the team in the fall. Yeah, I'm gonna work here. I don't care what I have to do. I'm gonna make this my desk. I don't care. I was so in love. Love the team, love the energy, just love the entire environment. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Yeah, but the minute I walked in those doors, I'm like, I'm going to work here. I don't care what I have to do.
So you basically had that single vision. So again, I think this was something that I think you touched on briefly, but how out of all the fields that exist in tech, right? Why did you narrow down on cybersecurity?
Well, initially it was either between software engineering and cybersecurity. I did software engineering when I left college. I was a software engineer, application developer at a financial firm, and programming applications in Java is god awful, and I didn't want to do it anymore. So I went back to cybersecurity. It was very, very dry, very tedious, and very boring to me. I didn't do, I guess, didn't know about project manager or product management or anything like that. I didn't want to be a penetration tester. Network engineering was okay with me, but cybersecurity seemed the most interesting to me, just from the fact that you always have to learn. You need people skills, especially, and you can be very creative with it, I would say.
So, I know that AT&T was down yesterday, even though there was a lot of speculation around whether it was a cybersecurity threat, but I think it just turned out that it was a new guy problem. But I think there's a lot of, emphasis and focus on cybersecurity. And I think it's a field that's hot right now. And I think it's going to be important going forward, even as AI and everything is taking over, because the more the opportunity exists in technology, the more the stakes are going to be high, and the more you're going to need to secure your infrastructure. Did any of this play into your mind where you were making that decision, or was it just something that you kind of like grew into and like, wow, I hit the jackpot?
I'll say a little bit of both, honestly. I knew that cybersecurity was going to become more and more prevalent as we move on in the world because we're kind of more interconnected as a society. So I definitely knew that was going to be the case. But I didn't envision all of this when I was like 20, 21 years old when I started out. I'm not going to lie. It does feel still kind of crazy that all this is happening, but just trying to take it in stride.
So, what were some of the things that you learned in that first internship that you feel like if you hadn't had that opportunity to gain that internship, you probably wouldn't have the success that you had today?
Oh God, everything. Honestly, that was the first time that I truly understood. People always say like, "Love your job." I'm like, "What the hell you guys are talking about?" I'm like, I fry chicken, make sandwiches. I don't love my job." But that was like the first moment where I'm like, "Oh my God, I actually love my job." I didn't have a bad single day. I love waking up every day going to work, which felt insanely weird towards me. I was just happy to be there, just happy to learn. So that really helped my learning, right? Just being in a positive environment every day, right? Generally enjoying what you're doing, super important, I would say. And then from that, I wasn't like an intern where I got coffee and I mopped the floors or something like that. They actually made me do real work. So I worked as a threat intelligence analyst basically for them. So my big intern project was to do threat intelligence research for one of the vulnerabilities inside of our system, which was Bits Jobs. It's like Windows admin tool that runs in the background, and attackers were using it to do some malicious activities inside of our systems. And so it was my job to basically build detection rules against that to block it. So I got to work with every single team inside the entire department, from network engineering to security assurance to GRC to security architecture. Then one of the cool things was I got to present in front of my CEO and CFO of Publix. So I
Wow.
was like, I kind of like pretend I blacked out a little bit. I don't remember what I said. I was insanely nervous because they're like Kenneth Ellington. Like, oh god, I'm like, what's going on? The lights were bright. I don't know what's going on. I practiced so much. I just said my thing. I sat back down. But it was really cool. There's like 400 people there, so I was insanely nervous. I was sweating bullets. Oh god, it's it was really, really awesome. This entire experience. So we toured all the facilities, the bakery where all the food's made, deli, produce section, the dairy plant as well. It was just overall awesome experience. I don't have anything negative to say about it. Those are honestly like some of the best times of my life. I'm not gonna lie.
So the two different elements that you string up there that I almost want to follow up on, that's very important. Number one is a theme that I've seen over and over again having this kind of conversations is there's a lot that you can learn, just by whether that's going to a boot camp, doing a certification, taking a course, but nothing substitute for that actual experience, right? Getting your foot in the door, collaborating, for example, across the different organizations, as you said, or different teams. But also, I think the second question is how important was potentially working at Publix in a different sector before getting that role in terms of setting you up for success? Because something that you're talking about now is even going back to those different places, including the spot that you used to work at.
I would say if I didn't work at Publix, even in the deli or the corporate, I wouldn't be here right now. I can 100% say that for sure.
Mhm.
I'll start from like the deli perspective. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happened there. There's a lot of weird people. People would threaten me with like a box of chicken. I'm like, dude, it's like $8. I'm like, I'm not gonna fight them. I'm not gonna shower some chicken, all right? That people throwing hot soup in my face. People stealing and getting fist fights inside the counter. I'm like, this is kind of insane, right? But through all that craziness, right, I learned how to deal with various different peoples that I didn't agree with, right? So I learned a lot of those soft skills. I'm a very introverted person by my nature. So that really helped me to come out of my shell and actually become a man, right, in that regard. That's why I learned my interpersonal skills and how to talk to people and how to handle different situations, which is very important in cybersecurity, and especially as a consultant. Um, then to pivot from the corporate side, that's where I got really immersed in cybersecurity. That's where I fell in love with Splunk, right, and SIEM technologies. I did it 9 hours a day, then 2 hours when I went to get back home. So I was doing it close to 11, 12 hours per day for 3 to 4 months. And it's a funny thing. Like when I went back to school that fall semester, I was one of my security classes, and the professor kept asking questions. I was one of the one answering it. He's like, Kenneth, he's like, how do you know all this stuff? He's like, oh, he's like, I worked as a security analyst. He's like, oh, no, okay. He's like, then put your hand down and don't answer any more questions for the rest of the students. People ask me, Kenneth, like, how do you learn so much so quickly? I'm like, well, I worked at Publix in corporate. Everyone's like super impressed by it. So it's a really cool experience, I would say.
That's really dope. So one of the things that you hear a lot, in tech is like networking is very important. Not networking as in the security or tech networks, but just like meeting people, talking to people, building relationship, that type of stuff. In your own personal journey and career, has that been the story for you?
Absolutely. I mean, that's how we met initially, right? Through like
Yeah.
LinkedIn, social media. That's how I met most of my students, most of my business partners, most of my business advisors. That's how I've gotten almost all my jobs has been through like LinkedIn or networking. So the way I like to think about it, and this is how I teach my students, we do 3 levels, right? It's not what you know. It's not even who you know. It's who knows you. For example, we all know who LeBron James is, right? But you have no idea like who the hell we are, right? So it doesn't really matter, right? So learning how to talk to people, learning how to build those interpersonal connections, and learning how to share your story and share how valuable you are, especially within cybersecurity, and how much of a resource you can be towards that person goes a long way, right? Because just knowing somebody isn't that impressive. I know who Jeff Bezos is. Again, he doesn't know who I am, right? So you need to build those relationships and get known inside the field.
Wow. You just said that line like almost from a book I read before called The Little Red Book of Selling. Have you read that?
No, I don't think so.
The writer says the exact same
Oh,
thing.
really?
And you take it to one level higher in the way that you explain it. So it's like this concept of, you know, and that's important. Like it's building, it's personal branding, right? So that's even one level up from just networking. Because you could go out to conferences, you could collect business cards and LinkedIn pages, but if you disappear after that, like it doesn't really matter. But if you're showing up, you're putting yourself in situations where people see you and know that this is what you're about. And you will find opportunities. I imagine that by first of all, networking, even in your landing this internship opportunity story, is you already knowing your manager, right? So that's networking. The who knows you is that level above where now you're selling yourself and saying, this is what I'm interested in, or this is my passion. And now she keys into that and now says, this is how I can help you action on that vision and that dream. So that's a very powerful concept that you unlock and absolutely spot on. So if you had to pick three skills, they could be soft, maybe even professionally soft. Because one of the things that I always kind of like advise people who ever reach out to me is, pick an area of passion where you can go hard in and where you already have those innate skills that help you succeed. So, as someone who's broken into cybersecurity yourself and being successful there and is helping many people break into cybersecurity, what are those three core skills that you think are innate to people who typically make it in this field and industry?
I have a couple. I would say discipline is one of the biggest things, right? Motivation is very fleeting. There are days where I don't want to do anything at all. I'm not gonna lie, right? I'm tired. I'm like, well, I'm working so hard, right? But I still do it because I built up the muscle memory of discipline and just doing things over and over again. It's where I set my schedule to work. It feels weird if I don't do it, even if I'm tired, even if I don't want to do it. That's very important. Because there will be days where you do not want to study for Python, you don't want to learn SOAR playbooks, you don't want to learn detection engineering. Trust me. That was me last week. But I still did it because I need to do it, right? And it's just a part of my routine at this point. So it becomes second nature. Second thing would be to have empathy, right? No one wants to work with an a-hole, right? No one wants to be that person, right? Someone's just like a douchebag towards you, like, well, I'm working with this guy, and it becomes very hard to get promoted and very hard to get or keep or retain jobs, right? Especially if you're a consultant, right? The client thinks you're a douchebag or an a-hole. You can kick off that client engagement. You may be fired from it, right? So learn how to understand people's needs and understand where they're coming from, right? See their point of view, right? Everyone has crap going on in their life, right? And you don't want to be a person that's just bringing your baggage towards them, right? So try to understand where people are coming from. Be empathetic of their needs and their pains and their wants, and try to help them out as much as possible. Third thing I'd probably say is ultimately be yourself, right? Don't try to pretend to be somebody else because you're not that person, right? It comes off as being very fake and phony. People don't like that. When you're first starting out, everyone's probably gonna ignore you. Honestly, they did for me, right? You can try to beg for jobs or internships. People are just gonna ignore you, not want to talk to you, right? It takes time to build up those networking skills to gain those connections, but it will happen over time. Just keep the faith, basically. And then once you get in that high level position, don't forget where you were at, right? I've seen it so many times, right? People get towards the director level and start like crapping on other people, right? And being mean and rude towards them, right? So don't be that person. Always remember where you came from.
Wow. It feels like a lot of sage advice. Thank you so much, Kenneth. So one of the things that I see, again, I don't want to, okay, maybe not that I see, but a big part or a big motivation for a lot of people to break into tech is money, right? And for those who are thinking about cybersecurity as that place to go get that bag, what is a typical earning progression for a lot of people who work in cybersecurity?
I would say I'll do a disclaimer here, right? If you want elite pay, you need elite skills, right? And everyone's want to put in that work, which I've started to see a lot since I've started to do this, right? With that disclaimer, right? I would say you can be like a SOC analyst, right, or a GRC analyst, right, or a program or technical account manager inside cybersecurity. Depending on location, starting pay can be anywhere between like 50 to like maybe 95, 100K starting off for like base salary. Then you add on bonus incentives from that. If you're like more senior like me, you can expect your salary to be from base, I would say between maybe 120, 170. Then add on incentives as well for that, for example.
Okay, that sounds great. So there definitely is a lot of money to be made in cybersecurity. So are there like any specific skills or certifications that are kind of like maybe foundational? And you talk about, I think that's definitely something I want to get to later on, because there's so many roles. Like even cybersecurity, from what my understanding, is not like a monolith, right? You talk about the SOC analyst, you talk about all of these roles. So what are maybe some things that are foundational or maybe rudimentary to every role, and maybe certifications or trainings that are maybe important to kind of like get as that base level to even before you start to consider yourself as ready for a career in those fields?
I would say it depends on what area you want to go in. If you want to do like SIM engineering, like I do, when we consult in this area, then the biggest vendors are probably Splunk. I'd say Palo Alto's growing, Keyrate, or IBM, and like Elastic, right? So I think of Splunk core user, Splunk power user, IBM certification, of Elastic certification stack, and Palo Alto has XCM now, right? So normally, whatever vendor, whatever industry sector that uses that SIM platform, try to get their certifications and try to specialize in the technology sector. That's the area you want to work in. So, for example, if you want to do cloud security, and you want to deal with AWS and Azure, I'd say just pick one cloud vendor, get good at that, then pivot as you need to other vendors. But if that's AWS, then get their base level certifications. Actually learn the technology, how it works. Just don't be a paper tiger, and then go from there. For example, you can do like government cybersecurity, government technology. You'll need some of the DoD certs, which I think is like Security Plus, and then CYSA Plus, I believe, which I need to get actually. For example, so it just depends on what your path is going to be.
So, if you could go back in your career, what's something that you would do differently?
I guess I'd say
I really put you on the spot with that one.
I would say start earlier, honestly, but I didn't. But I didn't have the passion for it, so it wouldn't have worked out for me. Would I actually change anything that I've done? I would probably say start ECA sooner. I've been teaching for the past like 6-7 years now. But we just started ECA like maybe 19 months ago. I was always hesitant and afraid of people would think that stuff was absolute crap. That's why I was always hesitant to actually start it. So I'd probably say I wish I started directly during COVID. If I did that, I wouldn't be working corporate anymore, honestly. We'd be a lot further along, but we're still getting there. So I would say probably I've done everything the best out of my abilities. I don't really have too many regrets, but probably saying not being too hard on myself and maybe starting ECA earlier. The biggest things I would say.
It's so funny that that's the common denominator when somebody finds their passion or just finds their purpose. You almost always wonder, like, wait, why did I do this like 5 years earlier? Like, I'll be so further along. But the interesting thing about that is, like, also if you're gonna build your dream or build your vision, making the mistakes that even lead you to that vision is also part of the journey. And you can never discount that, because one of the places where you get that conviction is that you've tried 3 things that didn't work out. So when this works, you don't take it for granted. You know exactly you're in that moment and you're in that place where you should be right now. So that's something I could say to that, because I've been in that same position so many times where I'm like, if only I just went in this direction sooner. But I guess we always go at the right time. So um, for those starting, new careers in cybersecurity at this moment in time, what's the one piece of advice you're going to give them in terms of whether that's their career trajectory, the things they need to hunker down on? Like, this is your first job. Oh, this, let's say I'm the person, like, this is my first job in cybersecurity. What should I, of all the million pieces of advice floating in the ether, which one should I kind of like zone in on?
I would probably say pick one area and go for it. You can't learn everything. Trust me, I've tried. I've seen people they're doing training for DevSecOps, trying to do training for cloud security, trying to do training for SIEM and SOAR, trying to training for red team. I'm like, guys, you can't learn all that stuff at once. It's not possible. Your brain's gonna overload, right? So pick one area. If you want to be a cloud engineer for security, then go hard as you can at that, and then pivot towards something else if you want to eventually learn that technology, right? Same thing with SIEM and SOAR. Same thing with red teaming, whatever the case may be. Just pick one area. Like I would say, learn the foundation for understand networking, learn Linux, you can learn a little bit of scripting on the side as well. Awesome, those are very foundational skills that apply to almost every single cybersecurity role. But from there, start to niche down, try to find the area that you really like and you think you can excel in.
That's dope. So, for a little bit of controversy, there's something flying in the air right now around starting a new career in cybersecurity, 6 figures, 45 days. Um, what is your take on that?
I mean, it's not realistic, right? It's just not. It took the only reason I was able to even move as fast as I did because I made this my life basically. I worked in school. I did probably 70 hours a week for 2 to 3 years, right? And most people aren't willing to put in that effort or work for that. Maybe because they don't have the time, maybe they have family or kids, or the kids maybe they don't want to, or they can't put in that effort or that level of dedication towards it. So people want elite salaries without putting in the work to get elite skills, right? Like I wouldn't or we wouldn't ask for LeBron James salary if we were like bench players in the NBA, right? That's not how it works. If you don't have elite skills, you can't ask for that elite salary. That's not how it works. You can't make 300K total comp if you're not willing to put in the work to reach there. So this nonsense of you can get inside cybersecurity in 45 days. I think that post, my friend Henry did it. He talked about it on his channel as well. It's like no experience, no certifications. That's not how it works, right? They people. I work with the biggest companies in the world. They can tell real quick when you're BSing them, and you know what you're talking about. It's not gonna end well, right? So it takes a good while to pivot inside cybersecurity, especially if you don't have any cybersecurity experience. It's gonna take you a while. You can do it decently fast, but it's gonna still take maybe a year, maybe 6 to 12 months, maybe 18 months, depending on what your schedule is and what you're trying to do. So to keep that in mind when you're doing it. Don't believe all these fake influencers out there trying to spout that nonsense, right? There's a lot of people that are just in here for a quick buck. Just be careful about what you see online.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, one of my friends really detests like whenever he sees things like that because he has a cousin up in Canada who paid someone $4,000 for like an 8 week program, did the program. They were supposed to kind of like put her through a job, training thing, and help her land a job that goes to her right after the program. So I definitely think that I agree 1,000%. I've seen many videos criticizing it, but I just wanted to get your take on it. And especially in this job market right now, where it's very employer favored, there's a lot of qualified talent out there. So even like if you're new, just period, even if you know have all the skills, it's still going to be a little more challenging than it was potentially in 2021. Because I think something I also want to be mindful of is it was a if you broke into tech in 2021, your experience is very unique, right? You have a very unique experience. Companies were hiring people based on potential back then.
That's
So even
crazy. It was
yeah.
insane. I got so many job offers. I really talked towards you guys. Man, it was a crazy time.
And now it's completely reversed, where you will be one of. It's interesting that I went through an interview loop at some point where somebody actually told me that you're qualified. Like all of the candidates in this loop are qualified. So we're not. This interview process isn't to know about qualification. Well, basically, And they walk me through like their process, like, oh, we're gonna do this or that and do that. And then once we get to the director level, if we still have a tie, they already envisage that they're gonna have a tie. Think about how interesting that is. So skill is not the problem at that point. They know every single person they're talking to is skilled. And that's kind of like what the market is right now. So imagine like you go into that conversation and you don't have the skill or you don't have the talent, you're not ready. And there's so much that goes into like being job ready. So on the one hand, you have to know the actual skill, but then you have to be confident and comfortable enough to be able to speak to it from a real perspective now, not just like from the theory in the books, because it's never going to go, what's the definition of X or Y or Z, right? Sometimes it's going to be an intersection of three different things. So you're faced with this, and this also is broken. What would you do in that scenario, right? It takes experience to be able to talk through that convincingly. And I think that's one part that a lot of people also don't realize. You're not going to be interviewing with the recruiter who has baseline knowledge. You're going to be talking to a seasoned professional, most likely as a hiring manager, who knows even way more than you do, even if you knew what you were doing. So it's hard to then finesse that, if you don't. I think that's something I'm going to add. But yeah, so one thing that I also see in your experience is that you also have, an IT and business analytics degree. I know we've talked about like building that experience through the internships. How important has your education also been in your tech career so far?
I would say school helped out a lot with just learning how to talk to people again. Just learning how to meet with a lot of different people that don't look like me or have different beliefs in me. That's super cool. Because USF is like an international school, so a lot of international students come towards our school. People like from like China, Japan, Israel, Mexico, Ecuador, Peru. They came towards our school, and I got to meet them. It's really cool to get to see their backgrounds and their histories. So that was one of the cool parts I really liked about going to college specifically. That like development period is really important because when I got to college, I was like 17, 18 years old, right? When I left, I was like 23. So a lot of growth and development happened in those 5 to 6 years. That was one of the biggest things I liked about college. From like a technical perspective, what was the best class that prepared me? Honestly, I learned the most from my internship. Honestly, that's where I got most of my skills from. Um, Yeah, that's literally. I learned more in those 3 months than I did in 2 years of my actual undergrad.
It's so interesting how that works. So what emerging cybersecurity trends or technologies are you most excited about?
I would say probably the I should put it like deplatformization of all of the endpoint solutions. So like SIEM, SOAR, XDR. A lot of companies are trying to group them together into like a new package, a new offer, making those integrated together. So I know Cisco just bought out Splunk. I hope to God they don't F it up. Palo Alto has XCM, XSOAR, and then I think Cortex, EDR. No, IBM has Carbon Black. Now they have QRadar. Then they have their SOAR product, right? A lot of these firms are trying to bundle their product together and trying to integrate their product together. Some of it is going to be some of it will probably be trash, honestly, because I don't know what they're doing, but some of it will be good. So I'm curious to see who wins out and those individual battles. Same thing with like CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike has CrowdStrike Falcon, their XDR platform. And now they have LogScale. They bought out Humio a year and a half ago, and that's their SIM platform.
So you talk about sensor, all of these different things. What are they specifically for anybody who doesn't who doesn't understand them?
So SIM stands for Security Information Event Management System or Monitoring System. That platform is the main one I manage. That basically collects and aggregates all the various log sources. So think of your laptop, your Windows server, your MacBook, let's say your iPhone, let's say your routers, your servers, your switches, your firewalls, all those types of logs get forwarded towards my platform. We manage it. We build detection rules on it. We correlate different issues with it. We're able to store and monitor logs for compliance purposes. From there, you will have the SOAR platform. SOAR stands for Security Orchestration Automation Response System. And that platform basically it's like a single pane of glass, which allows incident responders and handlers to perform their incident duties, right? So if an alert raises towards the threshold of a incident, so something crap hits the fan, right? Something going bad within the system. That allows them to more efficiently handle that incident and get it to be remediated as quickly as possible. It also allows you to orchestrate various different tools. So if they would like VirusTotal or CrowdStrike individually, right, which takes a lot of time, a lot of mistakes can be made, you can automate that process, or you can automate part of it and have an analyst take the last look at it to make sure it's done properly. Then the last one would be either XDR or EDR. XDR stands for Attended Detection Response, and EDR stands for Endpoint Detection and Response. Excuse me. So XDR is an extended platform from EDR. Think of EDR like McAfee, like that agent installed on your actual machine, and that monitors your specific machine, for example.
Mm. Okay, so just to kind of like take it one step further. So now that we know a bit more about the platforms, what are the different roles? Because I know you mentioned SOC analyst, you mentioned GRC, and a few others. What are the core roles in cybersecurity, and what are those different roles? What do they do?
So we can start with like the SOC environment. And SOC stands for Security Operations Center. So they're very big in like large financial institutions, and then MSFP providers, and that stands for Managed Security Services Provider. By the way, there's a lot of acronyms in cybersecurity, as you can tell. You source it. Basically, what that does is that's the heart and operations of your security center, right? For all alerts, the threats come in. That's where you manage all your security stuff, for lack of a better term, right? To make sure everything is running as it should be, and then if any issues arise, that team will handle it. So there's various levels. There's tier 1, there's tier 2, and there's tier 3. Tier 1 handles, for better alert term, the grunts. This is what we like to call them, right? They're the first line of defense. They handle all the alerts that come in. They filter through that. Then you have tier 2, which will perform the investigation. So think of incident responders. So when stuff hits the fan, they're for people to respond towards that. That's also where your SOC engineers are, or security engineers. And then there's tier 3, which are normally threat hunters, malware researchers. So those people are doing the proactive stuff to try to prevent the attacks from happening for the firm. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. So at the base level, you have people kind of like
Analysts,
analysts doing the work. Engineers are the one kind of like building on top. But the proactive, so the first two are more defensive, but the proactive stuff is happening on level 3, where they're basically researching all of the new threats that maybe level 1 and 2 may not even be aware of yet.
Okay. Yeah. Most organizations work that way. Not all of them. Sometimes they're structured differently, but that's normally how it works from what I've seen.
And then what is then GRC? What do GRC analysts do?
So GRC stands for Government Risk Compliance. So think of the compliance people, paper pushers, as I like to call them. Just kidding. So they're the ones that handle all the compliance and risk management pieces of it to make sure you're in compliance with federal government regulations or HIPAA regulations. Can't talk. Or federal regulations. So if you're supposed to be NIST compliant, that's a cybersecurity framework. They'll be the ones to make sure we're following the proper steps to make sure that's happening for our SIEM and SOAR platforms.
One of my friends actually recently joined Spark as a third-party risk person. And he was telling me about the role recently, and I got so fascinated about it. So kind of like telling me, you're working with a vendor, they're providing you a service. As a third-party risk person, you're the one going in there to say, hey, this is maybe a requirement that we're expecting you to have. Do you have it? If you don't, how quickly can you get it on board? Can you explain to me a little bit more about that role? Is this something you're familiar with to begin with?
Oh, third-party risk management?
Yeah.
So they're the ones that basically say, because firms will often have their own GRC teams, right? Other people might be biased because they're being paid by the firm, right?
Yeah.
So firms will often hire somebody that's not affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form, right? To kind of validate, hey, we're actually doing the compliant policies that we're stating we're doing internally, right? Because, for example, you wouldn't restaurants have their own people that check all the temperature, clean the stores, right? Then it's like a health inspector, right? health inspector isn't paid by the restaurant. That's complete conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. So they come and give like an honest assessment. Oh wow, that's a see. This is why it's great to talk to experts. That's what you get that level of insight. That's great. So one of the things that I see why you have a passion for it now because a lot of times as you're explaining concepts, you just make it sound so easy and relatable. Yeah, it's true. Where did the passion to teach all of this come from? I know you mentioned kind of like when we were chatting that it's something that you've actually been doing a long time before you actually started, building it into a program. Where did the passion come from and why did you decide to kind of like build it into a program?
So my dad actually, again, my dad loves to teach as well. He taught when he was a student at University of Hawaii, Pacific, I think, back like right when I was born. He taught a lot of classes as well, and he led a lot of stuff for the Navy for the instructing stuff as well for their software engineering stuff. So I started teaching back in 2017, 2018. I taught elementary students cybersecurity topics. That was a very big experience. Hard part was getting them to stay still for like more than 5 seconds. Um, and I tried to explain to them like what is like a white hatter, what is a black hatter, right? A black hatter. Uh, for those you don't know, white hatter is an ethical hacker, right? They only try to test your systems with your permissions and legal requirements in place. A black hatter is somebody that just breaks inside your systems, like nation state actors, right, or cyber criminals. They don't care about the rules or laws, basically. And they're really confused about it. They're like, white hatter, like, what is that? And then I'm like, think about Batman. They're like, wait a second, I'm Batman now. I'm like, no. You're going off tangent. And they start jumping up and down, saying they're Batman. So it was very, very interesting.
That's so funny. So, what specific trainings are in your program at the moment, and how has that evolved for you over time?
So initially when we started, I'm like, this is gonna be completely terrible. No one's gonna sign up for this. So initially when we started was just SIM. That's my best platform that I know, right? Out of the three technology stacks. That's what I specialize in. So that's what we did. So the initial program was 5 weeks long. We went over the basic core concepts of Splunk and SIM technologies. I think everyone that took that beta one got hired within like a month. And I was like
Wow.
completely shocked. Like this is absolutely insane. I'm like, I was just rambling on for like 3 hours every night, but they really liked it. From there, we started to add on. So you added some advanced concepts of Splunk from the front end perspective. From there, we then added the architecture and engineering concepts for SIM technologies. And now we've added a partner because Sentinel-1 is one of our partners. So we do workshops with them for the XDR and EDR technology stack. And now we've added the SOAR component as well. So we're doing some Swamp Phantom work with our students now. And then we'll add in like Jira, because I used to be a software engineer, so I learned that as well. On Microsoft Sentinel, that's their SIM and SOAR platform, so we do that as well. So a lot of different areas we'll bring in. And one of the coolest things that we do is, because we talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, if you want to get a job, right, you have to learn how to actually explain what you did towards your hiring manager. So what we do is we actually bring in hiring managers inside of our panels for the capstones. So students can actually present in front of them. And then they'll get judged by those hiring managers and how they did and where they can improve at.
Wow, that's so interesting. So they also build when you mentioned capstone, I imagine that they also build projects within the program.
Yes, so all the projects are hands-on. Because that's what my job basically is. So they build up, send up their own Splunk instances and their own SIM and SOAR instances. We teach them step by step on how to do it, any issues they have, we're there to help them out. And we teach them how to actually properly manage it, like you would if you were an actual engineer or architect. So it's very detailed. Stuff is very hard. You can ask any one of my students. That was who was pinging me when we were in a breakout room, basically, because she needs help. So I've been calling going to be helping her out. But yeah, we're there to give them constant support, basically, for anything that they need. The stuff can be kind of hard and difficult and confusing sometimes, because it was for me, and I didn't have that support initially when I started. So I want to create a safe place for them so they can be able to learn properly.
Yeah, I think that's the leg up that the people have that because you've done the hard work They still have to do the hard work, but
Yeah.
it's not going to be hard work in the dark anymore. Um, so this is the Working in Tech live stream. If you joined right after we were introducing it, and today we have Kenneth Ellington, who's a cybersecurity consultant. He also runs a cybersecurity training program. That's what we're just talking about right now. This is the part where we usually go into the audience Q&A. So if you have any questions, please drop them, and I'm sure he's going to be more than excited to take them. So is your program just one track or is it multiple?
So we have it broken down a couple of different ways. So for the premium product, right, which is our 6-month coaching program, it's called the Cybersecurity Boost program. That has all the tracks, right? You action towards me, my team. You action towards the coaching sessions, all the modules, all the self-paced stuff, all the workshops with all our vendors. You get action towards everything like that. For those of people that don't even have the time or money initially to do that, because it is a heavy workload initially, we sell those individual modules for both tracks. So the SIEM, the SOAR, the engineering architecture one, we sell those in separate tracks as self-paced options inside of our site.
Okay, that's amazing. And another thing that I had was, so across the different roles that you've worked at, what are some of the common threads that you see from a technology, but also like a professional development perspective that has kind of been consistent all through?
Biggest thing I see lacking in documentation, which I think is people don't understand, right? I met a lot of smart engineers and people, and because they're so smart, they're like, write it down. I can just do it again. Why would I write this down? It's stupid. So they keep doing the same thing over and over again, right? And then they don't understand it. If they get hit by a bus or win the lottery and they're gone the next day, I'm going to take over, and I don't know what they did specifically for their job, right? And that's going to be harder on me. So we teach our students, document everything that you do step by step, because I don't like repeating myself or doing stuff over again. So I make it as easy as possible for everyone involved, which is the biggest thing I see lacking in every environment, everybody I talk to, basically.
Okay, so we have our first question. Trey's asking, what's the fastest way to gain hands-on experience in cybersecurity?
I would say build out your own lab environment. If you're not sure, I'm more than happy to help. That's what we do for a lot of our students. We teach you how to do that inside of our programs. But get hands-on, stand up your own lab environment. It could be an AWS, can be a virtual server, can be using VirtualBox, VMware workstation, doesn't matter. Just figure out how to stand up your own environment and then learn how to actually manage the solution to that. There's a lot of good documentation online from the various solution vendors. So think of Palo Alto, Splunk, they have really good documentation to follow along. The questions you may have. There's also a Splunk Slack channel and a SOAR Slack channel, I believe. So you can ask some questions as well about that.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So the companies actually have their own resources in kind of like Slack channels where you can go and ask. That's great. So one of the things that you talk about is documentation. I think it's almost like the bad word in tech, but it kind of like pops up everywhere. Nobody likes to do it, but everybody likes the reward of it. What are some of the things that you see that can make you just really good at the act of documenting your work?
I would say practice, right? It's a process to be able to get that information from your brain on a piece of paper and make sure it's organized so someone else can follow it if you're gone. It's the way I like to look at it. So for me, I like to think about if I give it towards my grandma, could she follow along with it? If she can't, that means it's not simple enough for somebody to follow, right? So that's the way I gauge and value my documentation, right? I want to make this as simple as possible towards a junior engineer would be able to follow along for what I'm actually doing.
Wow. I actually never really thought about it that way. So it's about building quality documentation, not just building documentation. Because the goal at the end of the day is for people to be able to use it if you're not there for whatever reason.
Yes.
Great. I'm still waiting on more questions. Again, guys, if you have questions, drop them in the comments. We still have Kenneth here for another 10 minutes. So do you, for the coaching, is it cohort based? Is it a timeline, or do you start it whenever you just have someone new? what's the information on like the next one? How can people get in touch? Things like that.
So we normally we onboard people at the beginning of every single month. We're going to do it in batch sections, and then there's two different breakout rooms for us. So if you're newer, if you're a little bit entry level, I'll put you with one of my other co-instructors, and they'll teach and instruct you until you're ready to join towards the main breakout room with me and the other senior students. That's normally how we do it. You can technically join anytime you want to, but the pricing model changes sometimes. So I tell people if you're ready, you have the money and funds for it, sign up as soon as possible, right? Because yesterday's price is not today's price for everything in this world, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
So join before inflation catches up.
yeah.
Okay, so in how many different roles have you worked since your first job, um, and what has been the, I would say maybe the progression. Like, how do you know? Because that's something that also, like, I think as an online debate that I see now, where I think for the longest time the gist was work somewhere for like 18 months and then go hop for another job. But when you see somebody basically 10x their stock at Nvidia, now you're wondering like, is it really such a great career move to be job hopping? How do you kind of like decide that in your own career for just anybody who might also be confused by that? you know, is do you stay, do you go?
I would say so. I've worked maybe 7, 8 positions since I've left college. Threat intelligence analyst, application developer, SIEM engineer, then cybersecurity consultant, detection engineer, cybersecurity architect, and then SOAR engineer. Because I'm a consultant, so I have to wear all those different hats depending on what my client needs. Um, Biggest thing I would say is if you're happy with your current role, you get paid a good amount. You learn a lot of different things. You're happy with your company, then you should be fine staying, right? I would say rule of thumb, and this is for everybody, interview every 6 months just to know what the market is, right? And just improve those skills in case you get laid off or something happens. But I would say every 2 to 3 years, if you feel you're comfortable with wanting to leave, then go ahead and do that. That's a pretty decent range. Um, I would say it is always risky to stay at a company forever, right? Because if something happens, you get laid off, the company shuts down, all your knowledge and know-how is just in that one firm, right? And every firm runs differently, basically. So having varied experiences with various companies, various industries is very important.
So Maxine has a question. Says, "Hello, Kenneth. What's the biggest mistake you made in your cybersecurity career, and how did you overcome it?"
Um, Biggest mistake. That's a good question. Maybe I don't know. Actually, I don't know the biggest single mistake that I've made. I've tried to do everything as best as my abilities as I could. I don't think I've ever made any one like giant mistake. Um, I guess funniest mistake I've made was I wasn't on mute and we were in this training session. And the trainers were asking to do some crazy stuff. And I'm like, these people don't realize they're really junior engineers. Someone's like, Kenneth, you're not on mute. I'm like, oh crap. So I just closed my laptop and I went in another room for like an hour. Um, um, that was
That's
most. That's I wasn't on mute. Oh,
that,
yeah, it was.
that's not the craziest mistake, but yeah, it's a funny one.
Yeah,
Because it's so funny. I say to people all the time, I'm like, if you're a junior engineer, for example, like software engineer, and there's a day like you every day you wake up and you don't break production, like that's a you won already. Even if you do nothing else, as long as you don't break production, you're good. And that's why like you see like it was sometimes like big services go down, and it's like the new guy, but if you don't break it, you're not gonna learn, right? So I think definitely mistake is a big part of the journey. Mistakes are a big part of the journey. So John K is asking, how do you explain more technical parts of your job to coworkers or employers who aren't as technical?
so I like to use analogies as you've seen inside this interview. It's how my brain works. I'm a very weird person. If you haven't already told, So I like to use different analogies to bring it back toward a topic people can understand. So my biggest things are like Star Wars, anime, probably sports. So I like to bring it back towards that. It makes it a lot easier for people to understand. Someone may not understand like what the hell SIM is or what GRC is, but if I can point it towards like food service, everyone likes to eat. I hope so. That's how we're alive. Um, it makes it easier for them to understand.
So one of the things that you touched on is the fact that you're introverted, but you're also like really, really great at networking. Do you have a ritual? Do you have a routine? Like, how do you still do? Because if you're introverted, it means that you don't want to be outside. You don't want to talk
That's
to people,
correct.
right?
That's correct.
But you still got to be effective. So how do you do that?
Um, the way I like to look at it is when I pick things I want to do in my life, I'm very deliberate about it. So my goals aren't very fleeting. So whenever my goal to build my company is a multi-million dollar business, I want to make that happen. So whatever I have to do to make that happen is what I'm going to do, basically. So even if I have to go to meetups, which I don't have to talk in front of people too much. I still do it. Two, it makes a good example for my students who a lot of them are introverted as well, who may not want to talk to people. I get it can be awkward and people can be kind of weird, right? You don't want to talk to them. So just being able to do that and build up that muscle makes it a lot easier. I've gotten a lot better since I've been in college. So just having a certain goal in mind, someone I want to meet there. It makes it a lot easier when I already know somebody that's there, so I don't have to like walk up to someone, a complete different stranger. I have no idea who that person is. Um, yeah, I would say just practice it. Worst thing you get told is probably just leave me alone or just respond back towards you or walk away, which happens. So it's not too bad.
I think you already unlocked a strategy. I wonder if you have more. One of the strategies you just talked about there is like, if you're doing in-person meetings, try to go with someone or try to make sure that somebody you know is going to be there because that just makes it easier. Like if nobody talks to you, eventually you're going to talk to your friend. What are some other strategies that you've seen that has been effective for you in kind of like doing like a real in-person meetups and just being successful with that?
I would say have your elevator speech ready. Know what you want to talk about. Know why you're going there. Have a specific reason. When people ask who you are, you're able to tell your story a lot easier. So normally when I go to meetups, right, I go as a business owner, right? I represent myself. So it's a lot easier for me to talk about that, right? Because I love what I do. I know someone's like the back of my hand. So I'm able to explain those topics if any questions arise about that and what I actually do and how I can help people. Because if you don't know why you're there or who you're supposed to talk to, it makes it very awkward when people ask like who you are and what you do, right? So always have those goals specifically in mind.
There's something that you talked about that is also very useful, right? You talk about how to help people, and that's a big thing because I think a big part of being successful in life in general, but also even with people, is to want to give more than you want to take. I think one of the reasons why many people struggle is that they're worried about what what is this person going to think of me? How can I present myself to this person? What am I going to say? What is this? What is that? Whereas an easy way is just to like, I'm going to this event and I'm going to be, I'm just going to think like, how can I help someone? And maybe sometimes you don't even have to go with any new ideas. It's just like, how can I help? Seriously, how can I help? And you'll find out that by the time that conversation starts, you're already building a lot of rapport. Why? Because you started off with the other person. Have you had that similar experience?
I mean, I've had the opposite experience most of the time. People have come to me for needs, like Kenneth. No, they don't say my name. They're like, "Hey, you, give me a job." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Who are you?" I need a job in cybersecurity for network engineering position. When you find these roles, let me know and tell me. Do you understand me? I'm like, I don't know who you are. Right? I don't know who you are or who you're repping. Right? So it makes it very awkward. Right? People asking for money. People tell me weird facts about themselves. I'm like, I don't need to know that. That's just creepy.
Right.
Um, and people get mad at me. They're like, "Oh, they're like you're an a-hole, Cam. You don't want to help me." I'm like, "Listen here, man. I'm like, I don't even know who you are, right? I have people that have actually paid me that I hold like their hopes and dreams, right? In cybersecurity, right? I take that very seriously. So they will always give first priority, right? I don't know who you are. what your skill set is. So I can't go to you to one of my friends or hiring managers and say, hey, hire the person. Because if you screw up, if you're being disrespectful, that might hurt that relationship. And then now my actual good students can't get jobs from that person anymore because you ruined that, right? So I'm very specific about who I give out my leverage to.
That's important. So if we then flip that around, what is a good, and I know we're at time right now, so I want to be mindful, but I'll just say this as the last one. So if flipping that around, instead of going in needy or going in just being very aggressive, what's a better way to, if you're desperate or in a bad situation and you still want to break into cybersecurity, what would be a better way to still get that pitch across without seeming like a jerk?
I would say first, do your research. And people ask me questions, I'm like, this is right in my profile. It's like literally the first 2 words in my profile. I can't. Like, what do you do? Our profile is specifically designed to tell you guys what I do and how I can help you, right? So if you don't do that, it tells me you're not serious about this, right? You can't read like the first 30 seconds of my profile, right? Because all my links, all my YouTube stuff, Instagram, LinkedIn, website, is all on my profile page. So please do your research first before you reach out towards somebody. And if you don't, it seems like you just want a handout, right? You're not willing to put in the work, and they don't want to help you if you're going to be like that, right? So do the research. Second thing, as you said, just be nice and be respectful. Just ask, hey, how can I help you out? And then after that, if you want to tell them about what you can do and what you're looking for, that is fine, all right? But don't go to somebody asking, hey, Juwan, give me a job. All right. You tell me a job. Let's go. Come on. No, don't do that. It's just weird.
So we've come to the end. I usually do this at the end, Kenneth. So you have the floor now. Basically, if there's anything you want to plug, shout out, whatever, any last piece of advice, last words.
I guess my last words of advice is, again, be yourself. Don't try being a hole to somebody, especially when training cybersecurity. Because no one wants to work with you guys if that's going to be the case, right? And then be disciplined in whatever you do, right? If you do cloud security, you do cloud engineering, you want to be the right intelligence analyst, whatever the case may be, put in the work. If you want an elite salary and elite pay, you need elite skills. Always remember that.
That's a great thing. That's a great way to end it. If you want a lead salary, you have to have elite skills. Thank you so much, Kenneth. This has been great. And thanks everyone for joining. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We bring this straight fire every single week. That's been the episode for tonight. We'll see you in the next one.